Hello, welcome to Come Around my channel. Hope you're having a great day. Well, did you survive February? The crazy weather we've been having? Wow. Freezing temperatures down in Texas, knocking out all the power in the water, and tornadoes over there in North Carolina. This time last week it was minus 14 degrees, and today it's like 67, gonna be almost 72 today. Got a cool front coming in later tonight. They cool down a little bit tomorrow, but crazy weather. Yeah, I believe the main reason why the power grid went down in Texas is because a lot of the power plants wasn't winterized. Yeah, the wind power went down because they froze up. Because I know they run them things up in the northern states. I believe I read that a lot of the natural gas lines froze up, which that kept some of the natural gas, the power plants that runs on natural gas, that knocked them out. So, and then solar panels, that's not going to work if you got a sheet of ice and snow over the top of them. Because I haven't run my solar panels for several days during that time. I got them running today, but they're worthless. So this green energy is really not what it's cut out to be. I mean, it's just not. You got to have fossil fuels. I mean, got to have something for backup. I bet Texas don't do that again. I know they got down in Texas they got nuclear energy, because I used to work at a nuclear power plant down in Texas. Comanche Peak. It's down there in Glen Rose, Texas. We was just finishing up Unit 1 when I was down there, was bringing fuel on site. And then they still had to finish up Unit 2, which it was probably a couple years behind. But I did that right out of high school. That was a good job. That was back in early 80s. I worked there a couple of years till I got laid off. But that was a fun job. Yeah, a fact check here said the Texas state leaders have been warned of blackouts for years. Americans expect to see more and more extreme weather events in the coming decades, which will likely cause more of these devastating blackouts. The cold weather froze natural gas wells and blocked pipes. It froze the turbines and the coal piles. Yeah, it froze the wind turbines, and then also froze the coal piles, where they couldn't get the coal into the coal-fired electrical power plants. Yeah, they're expecting the electric bills down in Texas to be crazy high. I mean, I don't think that's right. I mean, it was the electric companies that didn't have their power grids and their power generators all up to par. They didn't have them winterized correctly for the cold weather. And why should the people pay for the added cost of electricity when they didn't do their job? I mean, I just don't feel that's right. Why should they fit the bill just because they messed up? I mean, I think the people down in Texas need to. Says, why are Texans getting a huge electric bill? Because natural gas pipelines and wind turbines froze up in Texas, there was less power available, but power demand for electricity causing wholesale prices to shoot up. Joshua Rhodes, an energy research associate of University of Texas. Yeah, when the power went down in Texas, well, that cuts out your water plants. You ain't gonna be able to run the water plants. That means all them lines are liable to freeze up. If you ain't got power in your house to keep your house warm, then your water lines are gonna freeze up. So I bet they got a mess down there. They got a big mess down there. But the only thing you can do in that kind of situation is what I would do if I was in that situation, would be fire up my generator, fire up the compressor and blow the lines out of the house. Take your main line that comes off your valve, take that loose. Mine happens to be just a copper fitting. Blow that line out. Blow the lines out from the cold water and hot water. Blow it down the sink, and then throw some antifreeze down the drains. That will winterize your house just like you would a camper. So that's what I would do in that kind of a situation. So with snow and sleet, freezing rain, temperatures as low as minus 20 degrees centigrade. Knocked out power and forced some utilities to implement rolling blackouts, and other states as well. We was having rolling blackouts here, but not here in this town. But I mean, I heard up in Topeka they was having rolling blackouts, and some towns over closer to Joplin they was having rolling blackouts, like in Pittsburgh, Kansas, they was having rolling blackouts. And that's closer over there where some of the power plants are. Maybe they had one that was down over there. But I bet they don't do that again. I bet they get some backup systems going. I know there at the Comanche Peak they had great big huge backup generators over there. I mean, they was 12-cylinder diesel engines. I mean, let's see, I believe they had two. I believe they had four of them, two on unit 1, 2 on unit 2. Great big huge 12-cylinder diesel engines. I don't know how many kW them was. They would probably run, I'd say not a few houses, but a few cities. I mean, them things was huge. But they was backup generators for in case of something went down in the power plant, they would have backup power. Yeah, this time last week, we was like minus 14 degree wind chill.
So at this point, you telling me for 4 days of electricity, I'm gonna owe damn near 10 G's. I don't have the money for that. And not only that, we've been super conservative. Our heat is on 65. We have our fireplace going because it's gas. We have not been using any lights. We don't have water either. Well, the only thing really that's running is the essentials. Of course, we're charging our phones. We have the internet. We got 2 kids. Everybody need internet. And so that's that. You will not believe how much my bill was for Sunday. For for power. Just for our regular stuff. $2,568. So I'm going to have to incur all these fees. So what's going to happen? After this is over, they're going to cut my power off because I can't pay. So, and they're not going to switch it over because I have a balance. So what, I don't know what to do. I'm pretty upset because then I'm also thinking about my credit, and it's like, what do you choose? So you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. You have power, or you don't. You can have power, but do you want to pay $2,500 a day, or you not have power and you out there just bogus? People are dying. People are, they don't know how to survive in this, especially if they're native Texans. They don't know what to do.
Wow, that was $2,500 for 1 day of power. $2,500. So like I say, I don't think that's right. I say it's more the power company's fault than it would be the people's fault, because they didn't winterize their equipment. So I think they could probably fight that in court. I imagine if they get a class action lawsuit against them. But I don't know. Big companies, they're hard to fight because they got the best lawyers. See, what's unique about the Texas power grid, they're like on an island. They are not connected to the neighboring states. Their electric company is completely separate from, they're not connected to the national grid is what I'm trying to say. So that makes them more vulnerable to major problems like this. You ain't gonna be able to, if they was connected to Oklahoma power grid or New Mexico, they could feed feed power from New Mexico or Oklahoma to Texas, and they would be on the main grid, and they would probably have maybe enough power, being they had, so many problems down there. Texas is like its own little country. I mean, they're pretty well self-sufficient, but this time it failed. And I tell you what, I bet it don't happen again. They see what went wrong, and I bet they fix it. I bet they get people in there to fix it, because I don't see why they would have some lawsuits over this deal. I mean, when your house freezes up, you have to turn it into your insurance company, and they're going to have to come out and fix all your pipes and whatever else is busted. And I don't see why there wouldn't be a bunch of lawsuits over this. Okay, and Texas Energy mix in January 2021. Majority of it is natural gas. Then you got wind, you got coal, then you got nuclear, and you got solar. Solar is just a little bit. See if I can zoom in on that. Okay, the top one's going to be gas. The next one's going to be wind. And see, you don't got no wind when them things are all froze up. You got coal, and your coal piles are all froze up. You got nuclear power. It's going to be there. Solar panels, it ain't going to do any good when it's all froze over. So see, that knocks out. If your gas lines are froze up, that knocks out the top one. Your wind energy's all froze up. That knocks out the second line. You got coal. You got your coal piles froze up. You got your nuclear power. That's about the only thing they had left. The second from the bottom. You got solar power. It ain't no good when everything's snowed over, froze over. Yeah, solar's no good when it's all froze over. So I can see the problem here now. Nuclear power is about the only thing that's going to hold up. So yeah, I don't imagine all the gas lines froze up, but it's the gas wells themselves that froze up. That was the big thing. Okay, this is what I was talking about. See that red area down there in Texas? That's the Texas grid, electrical grid. They're down there all by themselves. See, you got your eastern half and your western half on the main power grid. Okay, the bulk of the power loss in Texas came from the natural gas suppliers. According to regulators, the pipelines froze, making it difficult for plants to get their fuel as they needed. Production from coal and nuclear plants dropped as well. A similar phenomenon played out in Kansas and other states. Yeah, that's the reason why they're having rolling blackouts up there in Topeka area. My word, it was cold.
And blackouts. We asked the local utilities to reduce the amount of power they use in order to keep the overall system in Texas operating safely. We need to keep power flowing safely and effectively. And when we saw, particularly Sunday night as the storm blew in, the operators at ERCOT are thinking about that safety and that margin for safety all the time. We would not have asked for any customer to have to be without power, particularly in this terrible cold situation, unless we needed to manage the overall security of the electric grid. So when we first asked for those outages to happen, that was paramount, and remains so.
Are wind and solar power the main causes of widespread power shortages in Texas? Why are we talking about this? Well, millions in the Lone Star State are still without power, and now politicians are pointing their fingers at renewable energy sources, saying they're to blame. But is that actually what's happening? Our sources here are multiple reports from the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, or ERCOT, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. First, we need to explain that Texas has its own independent power grid. That makes it difficult for them to borrow power from other regions. Now, 90% of the Texas grid is managed by ERCOT. Right now, they report that 185 generating units have gone offline during these storms because of, quote, a combo of frozen wind turbines, limited gas supplies, low gas pressure, and frozen instrumentation. Texas Governor Abbott says one of the biggest problems is frozen natural gas pipes.
It's just frozen right now. It's frozen in the pipeline. It's frozen at the rig. It's frozen in the transmission line.
So, Governor,
they are incapable. The natural gas providers are incapable of being able to come up with a gas that feeds into the generators that generate the power that will send power to people's residences.
ERCOT says a total of 46,000 megawatts of potential power can't be generated right now. 61% of that loss is from thermal sources like natural gas, coal, and nuclear plants. Only 39% is from solar and wind energy. That means the claims that wind and solar power are the main cause of the current power shortages in Texas are false. To verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
So there you have it. It's not the green energy. That's really not the biggest problem. It's mainly the natural gas lines. Natural gas lines froze up at the wellhead, right there at the where the generator plant is. They're all froze up where you can't run the generators. You ain't got no fuel. There's no way to run them. So it wasn't just the green power that went down. It was a combination of everything. Okay, here it says misinformation spread online Tuesday as some conservative groups and lawmakers falsely blame blackouts on frozen wind turbines. Frozen wind turbines that quit generating power. In reality, thermal energy sources that went offline, such as natural gas plants, contributed to more of the problem. But the drop in energy supply is just part of the reason why so many in Texas lost the power this week. Here's what you need to know. A major windstorm hit Texas over the long weekend, causing two important things to happen. Sources of electricity like natural gas plants went offline. The demand for wind energy, the demand for energy they produced went up as people across the state turned on heaters to stay warm. That caused a massive shortfall in energy. The organization that managed most of the Texas grid, known as ERCOT, or the Electric Reliable Council of Texas, responded by cutting power to millions of homes in chunks as to limit the time any household was in the dark. These so-called rolling blackouts are similar to what happened in California last year during the extreme weather. I believe that was like in the summertime. Okay, on Thursday morning, 40 gigawatts of electricity were offline in ERCOT's territory, down from 46 gigawatts Wednesday. This is one of the largest shortfalls of energy supply in modern U.S. history. Most of the supply that went offline was coal and natural gas, not wind. But I guarantee you them solar panels didn't work with all that ice and snow all over them. They didn't say nothing about them. About 60% of energy sources offline in Texas on Wednesday and Thursday were thermal. That is, power plants that run on coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy. Well, I don't understand why the nuclear energy would go down. They're pretty well self-sufficient. I don't understand that, but I wasn't there, so I don't know. Well, the rest was from solar and wind farms. Cold weather is the obvious culprit. All different kinds of power plants in Texas was not wind turbines. Not just wind turbines have trouble operating in Arctic weather as their instruments freeze. It can be more difficult to pump natural gas out of the ground or transport to power plants in freezing conditions. What's more, utilities has prioritized sending natural gas to homes for heating instead of to power plants. Okay, millions of Texans were left without power, and plummeting temperatures as unprecedented winter storm wreaked havoc on the Lone Star State earlier this week. At least 37 people across the country have died in the storm and its aftermath. The majority of them in Texas, according to NBC News, as residents struggled to survive without power and water. While cold weather in Texas isn't unheard of, the extreme temperatures this week overwhelmed systems unequipped for such weather. In places like the Northeast, cold weather is just part of life, and houses, hospitals, and other facilities are built with the knowledge that come cold weather temperatures are going to dip below 32 degrees. Because of that, most pipes are wrapped in material that will help prevent them from freezing. Yeah, down in Texas, the further south you go, the more likely a home may have pipes that are not insulated. They're totally exposed. I know I've been down in New Orleans area, down in New Orleans and South Texas, and they don't worry about their water lines. I mean, they're just all laying on the ground and going up into the house, and they don't worry about, because their temperatures never get that cold, but they did last week. It was much colder here, but we're kind of more prepared for that kind of weather. We're pretty well used to it. We just hunker down and stay in the house and not worry about it.
Now, days after our winter storm, and another historic round of snow and ice rolled through Texas and knocked out power to millions of people there. A week later, many of them are still going without power right now. Now, to boil it down, two storms caused the same kind of disaster in two states. But what a lot of people might not know is just how different the systems that power those states are. And that's important when we're talking about this, having this conversation. When it comes to preparing for more of these disasters down the road, we need to know the facts. Here's Maggie Vespa.
I got 4 kids at home and we're all freezing.
Hundreds of thousands of Oregonians and millions of Texans were left powerless last week. Many still are.
I don't know how we could get to this point.
Historic snow and ice storms exposed vulnerabilities in each state's power grid. My goodness, this last week has just been insane to watch from our perspective.
It's been insane to live, Maggie.
To get a better idea of how Texas's grid works, I spoke with Jason Whiteley, a reporter with WFAA, KGW's sister station in Dallas. When it comes to power, the state is an island.
Here's the short version of it. In the United States, there are 3 major power grids, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and right in the middle is a little tiny power grid, the state of Texas. Not all of Texas, not Amarillo, not out in El Paso either, but most of Texas, 90% of Texas, is on its own power grid.
One big question, why would Texas want to be its own power island? What are the benefits of that? I mean, it boils down to pricing for consumers, does it not?
It all boils down to pricing. When the state legislature here in 1999 decided to deregulate Texas and break up the public utilities, they thought that the prices would come down for consumers. And in fact, Texas consumers can shop for electricity all the way down to the kilowatt hour.
Now let's compare that to Oregon's system, which is highly regulated and, yes, shares power with much of that West Coast grid. It's called the Western Interconnection. All the states who share power on it are shaded in orange on this map. All right, so Ben joining us now. For more, we turned to Ben Quila, the Director of Power Planning for the Northwest Power and Conservation Council. How would you describe that to someone who isn't familiar with this subject?
So the Western Interconnection is a really big machine. It goes all the way across international borders from Canada down to Mexico and across all of the Western states. It's something that helps us because it diversifies any risk.
A heart-stopping scene on an ice-covered highway. More extraordinary because this is Texas. Heavy snow at the Alamo. The entire state under a federal emergency tonight.
Who would think it'd be snowing in Texas, where you wake up in the morning and see nothing but snow, and it's so cold?
Galveston, on the Gulf Coast, more used to hurricanes, could see worse damage from ice. Over 3 million Texans without power in the path of the worst winter storm in 3 decades.
Water was gone at 8:30, power was off, we're all up, sleep, and it's cold.
Storms are causing perilous conditions for 150 million people across 38 states.
We at Emergency Management are asking our citizens, wherever you are currently, please do not move from that spot until at least Tuesday.
This is Tennessee, near Nashville. Just sliding away on black ice. Arkansas woke up to whiteout, colliding with warmer, wetter air, causing this multi-vehicle crash in Oklahoma. In Oregon, ice snapped trees. Seattle got so much snow it piled up on the observation deck at the Space Needle.
What we have on the inside observation deck, since it's open air, we actually have to shovel that and hand bring it down through our elevators.
A second storm system is now bearing down midweek from Florida right up to Connecticut.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, it can be a disaster. Everything's going to be a sheet of ice. My customers aren't going to be happy with me because I can't get salt to provide for them.
These images, familiar to Canadians, but a bitter shock to millions of Americans. A mass vaccine site in Texas deserted, and worse weather coming, says Houston's mayor.
Tonight will be more treacherous than last night. In the morning will be colder than this morning.
But as we know, winter has its charms, and on this President's Day, Southerners are finding that out. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
Okay, I guess that's going to do it about the Texas weather and the power stations and all that mess. So I hope Texas survives all that mess and get their power systems all back up and going, and hopefully they'll be a little bit more winterized and be ready to go for the next round. Who knows when that's going to be? It could be later this next month. It could be next year. But hopefully they'll be ready next time. So thanks for watching.